Hi, this is Angela with Dance with Angela, and this is the fourth video on dance and love, how dance plays a part in love, how it helps us understand or experience love. One of the things about dance that has changed my life is that it's experiential, it's not intellectual. So for me, dancing was the first way that I managed a lot of early life issues, child depression or teenage depression or inability to fit into society. I was a fat kid, so I got bullied, and I was also a little bit of a nerd. So people didn't understand where to position me, and I didn't know that it was okay to be what I was. But when I danced, everything made sense, everything felt right. So dance is an incredible way for some people to really get that sense of being accepted just as you are in that moment. And I've shared in the other parts of the series how listening to music, you can experience the process of expression itself. You're experiencing the music inside of you. But one thing that I wanted to share in this video is actually, it's not just a process where you listen to the music, you feel the vibration, and then you have another experience in your body. But the dance also is a kinetic energy. It actually, it starts a ball in motion, stays in motion. So dance by itself can transform energy. It's transformational. And I can say this because of living it. I've lived many of my most memorable moments were in dance, not just by myself, but usually with a collective, a group. But the transformation in the energy was palpable, not just in me, but in the space itself. So that's what I wanted to explore a little bit more. It's connected to the teaching that love is a process. You're always discovering through experiencing how things affect and are connected to other things through movement, through music. That's the teaching. Love is a process, and you get to see it when you see the music starting and the dancer performing. But the actual transformation of space is something that I'd like to share more on in this video. And I want to connect it to Indigenous cultures and ancient cultures. In particular, I'm going to share on some of the ancient Greek traditions. So I'm not trained in these traditions, but I've remembered them through dancing. And that's where a lot of other dance forms are not handed down from teacher to student, who then becomes a teacher to the student. In some cases, dance, because it's a transformational experience, it creates a change in the culture or in the space. It can be literally connected to land energies. And Indigenous Australians are living civilizations that do that, that have done that. They're still doing it now, but some of the tribes have been removed from their lands. So unfortunately, those traditions are not being danced right now. And it's very important that they continue, the ones that are doing it now, because that creates a transformation for the land, not just for the people. So my connection to the ancient Greek dance was very unusual because it was when I was young. I had no understanding of the culture. I knew a little bit about Greek myth, and I was obsessed with the Eleusinian mysteries. Didn't understand much about it. I started to do a little bit of research historically, but because the historic texts, which I was studying at school, were prioritizing a lot of the written texts, it was extremely hard at that stage before the internet to Google these more obscure traditions that are done through movement and through dance. So what happened was that I would start to dance at home by myself with Duran Duran or whatever the music was. And then in the process, I'd start to, it would go past an hour and I'd be dancing still. But then I would start to have memories. And the odd thing was, I had never studied Mid-Eastern dance. I never had any Greek dancing or anything like that. But these movements started to happen spontaneously. And I'm talking like I'm 13 years old. I don't know any of this stuff. I'm just exploring the dance. Subsequently, 10, 20 years later, when I started training in gypsy belly dance with Melanie Lechoir from Orlando, Florida, I was sort of realizing that actually when I was a kid, this is some of the stuff that we were doing. And Melanie actually did do dance ethnology. So she studied temple dances from the Far East, India, and she had a lot of trainings in that. And so some of her movements came from those trainings. But what I started to piece together, that I was actually remembering some of these dance movements, never saw them on television. It was before the internet, never been trained, but some of the movements were being remembered. And this is where, I mean, you can study and research some of this stuff on your own too, about how do we remember as a species things that we haven't done before. Dance is one of those important traditions that holds those stories, holds the movements and shares them. And keep in mind that video or film wasn't invented for thousands and thousands of years, and heaps of dance traditions have come down to us and have still survived to this day. So in Serbia, they have some dance forms that have managed to survive over thousands of years, and there's other traditions that have survived over hundreds of years. So those dances typically are translated in a more tribal fashion. But what I was experiencing, something a little different, something a little unusual, something that also inspired me to travel to another country. I grew up in Australia, and somehow I ended up in New Mexico studying Sufi dance. Why? I don't know. But I felt the vibration and I had to go. And there was a lot of resistance from some of my family and stories about, why is she doing this? And it's like, I don't know, but I have to go. So the kinetic energy is super important for understanding how our bodies are somehow moved into certain things that we have no real conscious awareness about why we're doing it, but we're doing it. And we then are taken into a journey where we start to transform our very perception of ourselves. So when I started to realize that some of these movements were different to what Melanie was teaching me from the Mid-Eastern dance, I started to contemplate, why was I doing those movements as a teenager? Where were they coming from? What were they connected to? How come I was doing them without having been trained? And why? Why was I doing them to Duran Duran? That would have been an interesting question. But the Duran Duran was important because it was new romantic movements were not scripted. So you were really just exploring something different. And it was a lot of creativity in the 80s, and we were allowed to do things differently from what our previous friends had done in the disco era. So if you look at the dance that maybe you're inspired by, if you're inspired by certain music, a certain culture, there's a very big clue there, because it's something to help you connect to what's in that culture that's really moving you in a way that be moving your soul, moving a part of you that's not the conscious mind. It's moving something very deep. If you believe in past lives, I do, it's something about that you've incarnated with as a memory, or it could be that this body that you've got this life is really needing that energy from the dance to help you process something at the soul level, which is extraordinarily beautiful, because it then makes dance something much more about what is it that really empowers you in that dance form, what enlivens you, what gives you grace, or what gives you joy, and also the colors and the rhythms, the very vibration of that culture is enormously important for something that you need to reconnect to in this life. And so music and dance have been extremely important for helping cultures to evolve past some of their more lower vibrations as well. So let me just look at that piece about, if we look at the kinetic energy that you're exploring through dance and how it allows you to move very quickly past stuck energies. If you've ever danced in a certain dance style and you get stuck, one of the things to really understand is what is making you stuck. We used to explore this actually. What keeps you in a certain cycle of motion? Annetta used to say to us that emotion, if you dance from emotion, you might be like, oh, I'm really feeling emotional. But that's motion, but it's not the energy of what you are. It's a concept of what you think I'm really emotional is about. So if we're looking at what's transformative in the motion, is when you're actually exploring what is the energy. So if you're stuck, that's another question you can ask. What makes me stuck in this emotion or this concept that's my movement? Because the questions then are a form of kinetic energy that allow you to work with the motion that you're working with. So all of my classes use questions, and sometimes it's only a couple, but they use them to really just allow you to explore what is that energy and how to make it grow. Now, in cultural dances, they didn't need the questions because the questions were embedded in the dance. So if I look at the ancient Greek dances, a lot of the dances that were connected to sort of the Eleusinian mysteries were for various rites of the year, and they were connected to the moon. So they asked the moon what the energy was, and then the dance came from that. It was very much connected to that, or certain rituals of the year, the cycles of the year, and the seasons of the year. So the dance was connected to that. There would also have been certain rituals that were done for releasing energies. So cathartic rituals where you would have, the women would have gone and done rituals to release certain vibrations. And these were all spiritual practices done through dance itself. And that's embedded in the culture. What we have now in a lot of our practices is no questions, and the music is now the dominant aspect of what we're exploring in a lot of our collective dance. So if you go to a nightclub, it's hard techno, or it's very loud, or it can be mixed in a certain frequency, and that's dominating your body. I got to do this on one party, and the music was too loud, so I had to leave the room. And that's happening to me a lot because basically without a question in our culture about where we want to take the energy or what is the energy, without any consciousness in the culture, we can't take the transformational aspect of kinetic energy in dance and do something with it. And all we need is a couple of questions like, what's the goal of the music? That would be enough. If it's just to get off our face and avoid society, fine. But at least give people other choices as well. And you'll see that a lot of people are drawn to different styles of music because in that music is a certain intent or desire, like carnival music, Brazilian music, to have fun and celebrate life, and to celebrate rhythms, certain rhythms that really make your body feel a certain way or move a certain way. So if you're attracted to a certain music, you can look at, well, what's the feeling, the intent behind that music that I feel? What do I like about it? That's it. If you want to do more music that actually transforms you or it enlivens you to the abilities that you have to be who you are, the questions become a little different. Because then you can ask, well, how do I interact with the music? Or maybe you want to turn the music off and just interact with your own body and discover what's there. Because the music is enormously, as a vibration, it's so enormous, it can start to dominate you unless you're using that music like I do in a lot of my classes. I might use some of the singers. I use the Sufi singers, Sufi movement workshop. I use the Sufi singers because of their intent and their beautiful vibration. And their intent is to connect to the divine. It's very clear, easy, job's done. Put the music on and the heart starts to open and look to the divine. If I change the music to a different culture, different intent. So we're exploring a different vibration of that culture. And that's why I use the different cultural dance music, to take people to different feelings and to allow their bodies to explore their body in a safe context with that music. So if you're looking for love and you're finding you're not getting it, the first question you can try to ask is, what is not moving in my life when I feel maybe myself, or feel my life? What's stuck? What's not moving? And the next question, perhaps more important than the first, is, what do I really want? I feel like our culture now has got to sort of more electronic music in social contexts, more loud and sort of techno type music, because we've stopped really looking for love or what we want. And we're sort of surrendering to just the robots and what they've got on offer. Where actually there's another part of society really looking. And so if you're looking, thank you for watching the video, and you are welcome here to just start asking that question, what do I really, really want? And where can I move that in my life? The dance is one way to explore it with the questions that I've offered through the video. You can say, where am I stuck in that movement? Where am I stuck in that emotion? And just see how that question allows the movement to feel and change in your body. Or you could just explore one of the classes with me and see the questions that I offer you in your specific body makeup and your experience of your body to see what's coming up for you. Because the energy is kinetic, it's definitely connected. And this is the last part. When we explore movement as a kinetic energy, the largest kinetic force that we're subject to is gravity. And most of us, we don't really pay attention to it at all. In dance, we have a chance to, but in a lot of the movement forms, yoga, all of them, they're really getting us to explore our relationship to gravity. Most of us do it all the time unconsciously. So the dance, allowing you to honor the role that gravity plays for us, is also a very important piece when we come to the kinetic energy. Because all of us, we can lie down and sleep and allow our bodies to surrender that way. And we can also explore our bodies in different movement forms. So gravity is used to explore the different parts of the body in different forms besides being upright. But when we're exploring ourselves upright, there's this enormous potential to experience the power of gravity and how it actually is so important for our evolution as a species. The whole Kundalini process is about working its way up in relation to gravity. So that's the last piece I wanted to share on the kinetic energy, because gravity, being the largest force of kinetic energy on this planet that we experience, is the most important one, because it then really gives us a really good focus on what we want to explore with love. If we're here on this planet, we're here to explore love, for sure, and the love of our own ability to be upright in relation to gravity is so enormous and so wonderful. So when you do your yoga or your mountain pose, or just explore sitting up in a meditation, take a moment to think about your love for gravity and gravity's love for you being here on this earth, and explore how that's such a amazing experience to feel in your body, that relationship of gravity coming and supporting you being on this earth and you meeting gravity. That's some of the ideas I've got to share on how dance and love are a kinetic force connecting us to life on earth. And I'll be doing a series on the chakras as well, so you can find out more about that lovely relationship to our Kundalini meeting the stars. Thanks for joining, and see you next time.